Hey everyone, welcome back to Pins and Whiskers. If you're new here, make sure you boop the subscribe button in the snoot and we'll get on to the video. Now, since we are in the process of searching for new gerbils, I thought it would be a perfect moment to make a video on what you should do before getting gerbils. So probably the first thing to think about when getting gerbils are the startup costs. Now, in the beginning, getting gerbils is going to cost you quite a bit because you need to get all of those first things, and then when you have them and you finally have all those things, that's when you start only having to think about some monthly costs. Now I'm going to read from the list because it's easier, but some of the things that you should be thinking about are 6 to 8 inches of bedding, an 8 to 12 inch wheel, enrichment, so that means chews, hidey huts, sand, etc. Their food, a divider or cage topper, a lid, which is probably most likely going to have to be DIY. So that means egg crate or wire, and of course their enclosure, so either a fish tank or DIY. Now, I live in Mexico, so I can't really give you the prices, what those things are going to be for you. But if you go to Petco and Amazon or eBay, look up all of those materials, Etsy as well, and see what those prices are before you're getting a gerbil. And then after that startup cost, there's a monthly cost. So their bedding, you're gonna have to replace their bedding from time to time. Usually I do a half change of bedding once a month, and then every week I do spot cleaning. And then the other monthly cost is their food mix. So their food mix is going to run out. Or if you use my food mix, that lasts a couple months. So definitely think about that because that's important. And of course, a vet fund. This is very important because if your gerbils get sick, you are going to have to take them to the vet. And so you're going to need to save money for those times and have that money prepared always, because you never know when something is going to go wrong. And when those emergencies happen, you don't want to be at a loss of funds. So definitely think about those things and get those things ready before getting gerbils. Gerbils are social animals. So this means that you can't only have one, and you're going to have to try to at least have two actually being the most ideal. Now, you already know how much space a hamster needs, so having more than one gerbil is something to think about space-wise as well. You're going to need more than sufficient space for those two, or if you're going to have more sufficient space for 3 or 4, I highly do not recommend more. And when preparing to have multiple gerbils or a pair of gerbils, you have to be prepared to carefully bond them if they were not already previous together. If you are getting gerbils from different places, then you have to be prepared to bond them. I highly recommend researching the split cage method. The split cage method is one of the strongest methods that are known to bond 2 gerbils or more gerbils together. I won't go too much into depth in this video on what the split cage method is. However, there are tons of resources on what it is and how to go through with it. Essentially, you are splitting a cage and having one gerbil and the other gerbil on each side. You switch their sides from time to time so they get used to their scents and their surroundings. Usually you know that it's been successful when you see them sleeping side by side together at the barrier that you've made, sleeping there through the night or whenever, sleeping next to each other through that. Usually then is when you can feel comfortable enough to get rid of that divider. And the last thing that you need to prepare for the social aspect is for any instant of declanning. There's no way to know if a gerbil's bond will remain forever, so you have to be prepared to have a space ready for one of the gerbils in case they break out into a fight or you see things are not going according to plan. You're gonna need that space ready so that you have a place in case you need to separate them. The next thing that you need to prepare for is a space, and the bare minimum space. Most of the cages that you see in pet stores are just not suitable whatsoever. Now, there is a 10-gallon per gerbil rule. So technically, you can have 2 gerbils in a 20-gallon, but I just don't see that working. even with a cage topper, that is just such a small space. 40 gallons would be my bare minimum, and even then you still need a cage topper for their wheel, their sand bath, and their water, because gerbils will cover everything in bedding. Now when you get to the sizes of a 50 gallon or above, you need a divider, so you no longer need a cage topper, but you still do need a divider for their wheel, water, and sand bath, because again, they'll cover it in bedding. A lot of people ask about my tank, so I have a 63 gallon tank. It was custom made, so I can't really tell you where to get it, but I use a divider, and my divider is made out of acrylic. And again, an additional divider or enclosure should always be kept at hand for any case of declanning. The next thing to think about is that they need attention. Sometimes you're around your gerbils enough for them to get attached to you, so be prepared to experience that however they show it. And be prepared to tend to that plea often. Now what I mean is that my gerbils, Beanie, Lemon, and Almond, they loved attention, but nobody loved more than Beanie. Beanie just, I know it wasn't a space issue or a boredom issue. Well, kind of a boredom issue because she wanted to get my attention, but she was the only gerbil of the three of them to climb the tank, and just to get my attention, she would nibble, and that would just worry me so much because I did not want her ingesting her cage lid, because gerbils have such sharp teeth that they can make indents on almost anything. I had to block areas with cardboard just so she would not be able to chew her lid. And I even had to sacrifice having such high bedding. I used to have like 12 plus inches of bedding, and I've changed it to like 11, 10 inches just because she would not stop. And she would stop only if I would let her get in my hand. And she would just like to be above the enclosure itself, just running, looking at things that she doesn't really know. And that's it. She would just want to do that. So be prepared for your gerbil to show interest and want and get your attention in ways that they can seem possible. The next thing to prepare for is enrichment. So gerbils need boredom breakers, especially when they want to be out of the enclosure. Sometimes you're not going to be able to give them attention all the time, so they're going to need enrichment in their enclosure. So boredom breakers are the best way to do that, and the best boredom breakers tend to be things that stimulate them, they stimulate their senses, and the absolute best thing that stimulates them are things to chew. Gerbil teeth are constantly growing, and so nibbling is one of the things that they do constantly, so give them things to chew. And I have a video on boredom breakers, check that out, so you have some ideas on what you can do to provide boredom breakers and enrichment. And the last thing to think about when getting gerbils is the fact that there are more questions than answers. While pet care is always updating and improving, for gerbils, that information is reduced and lagged behind other rodents. For example, their diet and their social bonding are the most crucial information that we do not have secure answers for. As a result, always be wary, vary your sources, and always gather all of those experiences or advice and use it to conclude your own informed opinion. So that is it for this video. I hope it helps you in your preparation for getting gerbils. Always use and look up things more than just this video for when you're getting gerbils. Do your own research, use different sources. Let me know down below in the comments anything that you recommend doing or preparing for when getting gerbils. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!